Welcome to episode 5 of the Whimsical Rant, the world's fastest paced podcast. It's the ultimate podcast for people with short attention spans. I'm David Hammer Time Hamley, a comedian from Melbourne.
And I'm David KB Casey Boy Kaye-Smith, a long-time friend of Hammer Time who rides on the great man's coattails. I'm usually based in Brisbane, but I'm currently stuck in Melbourne.
This episode is informative.
It's entertaining.
It's very punny.
And it's very musical with a brilliant new parody song about
Scomo. So without any further ado, let's cut to the chase.
Let the rant begin.
We're going to open this episode with the sports report. Let's start with the French Open, the most predictable sporting event in the world. The French has been dominated by Rafa Nadal for the past 16 years. Before the current tournament, he had won the title 13 times. Snoozers, and he had won 100 matches of the tournament and had only lost 2. Boring. This year, Rafa reached the semi-finals again, but he lost to one of the world's least likeable players, Novak's Jock Itch.
That's a brilliant nickname for Novak Djokovic, Hammer Time.
Thanks, KB. I didn't come up with the Novak's part, but I did add the Jock Itch.
It was the icing on the cake, Hammer Time.
It was indeed, KB.
And Novak probably has a lot of trouble with Jock Itch.
Yeah, because he bounces his balls so many times between points. Da-da-diddle-diddle, da-da-diddle-diddle, da-da-diddle-diddle-da. Da-da-diddle-diddle, da-da-diddle-diddle, da-da-diddle-diddle-da. That Benny Hill moment was brought to you by
KB.
But enough of Novak, let's talk footy. The big story last week in the AFL was the resignation of Collingwood coach Nathan Buckley. After only 3 wins in 12 matches, it looks like Nathan decided that the buck stops here. Boom, boom. He's been replaced by assistant coach Robert Harvey. Personally, I think that Harvey has 2 chances of being a successful replacement. Buckley's and none.
Oh, Hammer Time, you've done it again, with not 1 but 2 brilliant plays on words with Nathan's surname.
And there's more, KB. Coaching Collingwood is a very stressful job. It's going to be tough for Robert Harvey. I think you'll see a lot of Harvey wall banging in the coach's box. Harvey, wall banger, gold.
It'll be enough to drive him to drink, Hammer Time.
Ring the siren, KB.
And now it's the week in music.
KB, the future of music is in safe hands with great Melbourne bands like Dr. Colossus. Last week they debuted at number 16 on the ARIA chart with their new album, I'm a Stupid Moron, with an ugly face and a big butt, and my butt smells, and I like to kiss my own butt. It's a really catchy title, which they took from an episode of The Simpsons. I thought they were heading for the top, but the album sank like a stone this week, dropping completely out of the chart.
Who would have thought, Hammer Time?
Yeah, it was a good trip, but ultimately a short trip for the Springfieldian Doom Band. Dun, 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 dun. And in concert news, last year I purchased tickets for Alanis Morissette. She was due to play at Rod Laver Arena in April 2020, but then COVID hit. It was rescheduled to November 2020. Then it was rescheduled to November 2021. Then last week, thanks to the Morrison government's totally botched vaccine rollout, it was rescheduled to November 2022. And you'll never guess where Alanis will be performing in November this year instead of Australia.
Where, Hammer Time?
She'll be on stage in the US of A.
Is that the same USA which has had 34 million cases and 618,000 deaths?
It is indeed, KB. They've already fully vaccinated 43.1% of their population, whereas in Australia, we've managed to only fully vaccinate a paltry 2.6%. By the time Slow-Mo's government completes the vaccine rollout and the international borders are finally reopened, Alanis will be coming on stage with a walking frame. This one's for you, Scomo. And I'm here to remind you of the mess you've made with hotel quarantine. It's not fair to deny me of the rollout that you promised me. You really blow, Scomo. KB, let's talk cars. If you get a flat battery, what do you do?
Well, until recently, I used to holler for a marshal.
Marshall!
But not anymore, because if I shout Marshall, I might end up with a Stephen Marshall.
Yeah, KB, he won't fix your battery. He'll just send you some Kappa COVID fresh out of South Australian hotel quarantine. And when you try to send it back, he'll slam the door right in your face.
Yes, Hammer Time, South Australia were very quick to close their borders.
They were, in fact, the first.
What a hide, Hammer Time.
What a rawhide. Rollin', 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 rollin'. Your turn, KB.
Rollin', rollin', rollin'.
Rawhide. Note to self, never let KB sing again. Anyway, thanks to the South Australian hotel quarantine breach, we ended up with another outbreak in Victoria. And as always, we've been getting predictable advice on how to handle the outbreak from the right-wing Liberals and their Murdoch and Costello media enablers. They've been telling us to follow the gold standard in New South Wales. That's right, they want us to follow the lead of Scomo's love child, Gladys Berejiklian. This is the same Gladys Berejiklian who stands up daily at press conferences telling people,
if you have symptoms, no matter how mild, please get a COVID test and isolate until you have a result.
However, when Gladys had a COVID test, she didn't isolate. Instead, she went into Parliament and voted on some key pieces of legislation and then went home. And you could write a book about Gladys's secret live-in relationship from 2015 to 2020 with the disgraced former member for Wagga Wagga, Daryl Maguire. Gazza is still under investigation by ICAC for various fraud-related offences and is facing a possible jail term. But apparently Gladys had no idea about Daryl's dodgy deals. Gladys was simply naive, as she admitted in candid interviews with Ben Fordham on 2GB and Kyle and Jackie O.
Only the most hard-hitting interviews for Gladys, Hammer Time.
KB, Gladys is like a fare evader who gets caught but doesn't get fined. And speaking of someone who doesn't face any repercussions for his many failings, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Scott Scomo Morrison. He's a man who takes responsibility for nothing. He's a Teflon man. Nothing sticks.
Bushfires.
Hotel quarantine.
Vaccines.
Aged care.
Robo-debt.
Christmas Island.
Global emissions targets.
Etc., etc., etc. And if you watch the 1954 film The King and I, you'll find that this is an excellent impersonation of Yul Brynner. Anyway, I could go on and I will. Back in March, thousands of people gathered in front of Parliament House for the Women's Justice Rally. They were protesting about the treatment of women at Parliament House. That busy little bee, Scomo, couldn't spare 5 minutes to meet with the organisers of the rally. However, 1 week later, he did find the time to fly down to Melbourne with Treasurer Josh to attend the opening game of the AFL season at the MCG. And there was even a photo taken with his host, AFL CEO Gil McLachlan, to record the happy event. It would appear that Mr. Tin has his priorities right out of whack, KB. He drives everyone crazy, including the Speaker of the House. Mr. Speaker! Mr. Speaker!
Will the Prime Minister please sit down?
But he has provided the inspiration for a brand new parody song. It's a reworking of the Kylie dance floor classic, I Can't Get You Out of My Head. It's called We Can't Get Scomo Out of Our Head.
Blah, 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 blah.
Mr. Speaker.
Blah, 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 we can't get Scomo out of our heads. It's his bloginess we always cringe about.
Go Sharkies!
We can't get Scomo out of our heads. His droning voice we always scream about. Blah, 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 blah.
Mr. Speaker.
Blah, 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 blah. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. The Teflon man we always rage about. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. He's a bully, a parliamentary lout.
With only 4 watches.
Every night, every day, so much we might go insane. We can see misogyny. sanctimonious and he is devout, but he doesn't help the refugees. He is a man with no heart.
Like Tin Man.
We can see he won't set them free. Has no empathy. And that's forever and ever and ever and ever. Blah 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 blah.
Mr. Speaker.
Blah 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 blah.
Mr. Speaker.
We can't get Scomo out of our heads. He's the man who gave us Robojet. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. But he's doing God's work apparently. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. He's a man with no accountability. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. 'Cause he always gets off scot-free. We can't get Scomo out of our heads. Get him out, we need an exorcism. We can't get Scomo out of our heads.
That was Hammer Time on lead vocals and lyrics. David T-Bone Barnett on guitar and backing vocals, and David KBKZ Boy DKS Deeks on nicknames and back announcements.
We hope you enjoyed the 5th episode of the Whimsical Rant. We look forward to your listening company for episode 6 real soon. P.S. Make sure you subscribe so we can feel the love, baby.